We've got flags and banners, and if you mind your manners, we might even get to standards and what they represent. So just take my voice's hand and we'll both try to understand how this VexHeads logic podcast could be flagged for content. Flagged for content.
What's up, VexHeads, and welcome to episode 56 of Flagged for Content. It's the only podcast hosted by someone on the NAVA 59 flag design committee. So, look at your boy moving on up in the world. It is also a Flags for Good podcast, and you can head on over to flagsforgood.com/flagged4content for like the number, and pick yourself out a flag. They've got a few new voting ones out now. Obviously, Juneteenth is coming up. They have one of those. They have the show's flag as well. I think they've got 4 remaining of that. Doesn't matter what you get, but when you do, go ahead and use the code FLAGGED4CONTENT, spelled the same way with the number 4, at checkout, and net yourself a sweet, I think it's like 10% off, and it helps the show as well. So go do that. Anyway, aside from that, I don't have too much to say today. As you viewers can see behind me, I've got a couple flags up here. I've got to get to Seattle pretty quick, so I am kind of recording this and then getting up there. That said, I had a great talk with Nicholas Signorello. Did not even really plan it to be this way, but given that the most recent episode, 55, was Ted K talking about good flag, bad flag, Nicholas has some critiques or idea. There's things that he likes, things that he has critiques of, positive and negative. So kind of works out that we're going into that just a week and a half after Ted's episode. So very cool. Nicholas was very cool to talk to. He is in the Discord, which I always mention. And we talk a lot. I think this might be the longest Patreon episode, bonus episode 56.5 after this one. I think we talked for an hour extra. So anyway, go check out the Patreon if you haven't. There's different tiers there that I think kind of one for everyone. Anyway, all that aside, let's go ahead and get into episode 56 with Nick Signorello. Folks, we have another heater this week. You know him as vexillology.nj on Instagram. You know him as a loud and proud NAVA member. And you know him as a substitute teacher and dad joke extraordinaire. It's Nicholas Signorello!
Thank you for having me, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
What's up, Nicholas? Yeah, it's dude, it's so good to have you here. It's been a long time in coming. You've been a big fan and supporter and in the Discord, on Instagram, all that, which I could not appreciate more. But yeah, how you doing?
Good. I just got back from camping for about 2 days. It was my buddy's birthday, and we decided to go camping, and I brought some flags out, as I usually do. It's kind of like my little tradition. So whenever I go out camping, I always like to bring the flag of New Jersey with me, and that's for wherever I go. And my buddy Billy actually really liked it. He never would have thought to bring a flag, but he was like, I really like the addition. It's nice. It feels homey. It feels nice. So.
Yeah. No, for sure. It feels like a proper camp almost. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers can relate to this, but a lot of times when I book, say, Airbnb or Vrbo or whatever, I will, one, look through the pictures and see if there is a flagpole on the property, on the, usually on the porch somewhere. Mm-hmm. And 2, if I don't see one on the pictures, I have messaged owners and been like, hey, is there a flagpole by any chance? Just because honestly, it's one thing and I love taking pictures and videos of flags on my back porch, but it'd be cool to take one up in the mountains sometime. So yeah, I definitely get the camping thing and the flagpole for sure.
Oh yeah, just find a nice house just situated on a mountainside where you can just hoist whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as a dad joke extraordinaire and as someone who recently went camping, was it intense?
Oh my God. See, wow, did you come up with that on the fly just now? Did you just do that?
No, well, yes and no.
Okay, no, I like that. That was good. That was awesome.
Good. And that's probably a good place
To begin.
to go ahead and get into what's on the flagpole today before I can't speak anymore. Which is VexHeads. You're in for a treat. We have our usual over and underrated flag. We've got some opinions on the good flag, bad flag pamphlet, both for and against. We'll go into some of the exceptions that make the non-rules, and we will briefly discuss some lesser YouTubers. But first, before we get into any of that, Nicholas, I like to ask my guests, what is your favorite flag?
So my favorite flag, I would have to say, is the flag of Fiji, which can be a very controversial or however you want to put it answer.
Yes, it's on the doc, but you told me specifically, like for the listeners, viewers, he was like, "Well, I'll bring it up during the episode so that you can, get the full surprise part."
Yeah. So I was really thinking like long and hard about like this question because there's so many flags that I love, and there's so many flags that attracted me just to the study of flags. But when I was creating my flag account and I was going through like what flags I wanted to post, I had Fiji out, and I think it was one of the first ones I ever posted on my, I want to say, Instagram or TikTok account, and it was my profile picture for a long time. And I thought, since my account is sort of like NJ based, NJ themed, I better have the New Jersey flag out eventually. So I eventually did do that, and I changed my profile. But I don't know, just after, like, there's just some flags that like I just see that on paper that I don't think they look necessarily that great, but like you just see them waving, like the light blue against the sky. I love the shade of red against that shade of blue in the crest or in the shield. And I do love British ensigns, like with the Union Jack in Canton and the badge on the fly. It's just, there's some flags that just do it for me, and Fiji's one of them.
Okay, unpopular opinion. As a listener, I'm sure you've heard people voice basically the opposite of that. What is it about the specifically about the British ensigns or like the flag in Canton that you do like?
I think it's just a handsome design. I think it's a great way to sort of harken back to that history. I don't find that it's too offensive. I know people have their opinions on flags within flags. That there's a huge pushback sort of against that, but I don't dislike it. I love it on like I said, the Fijian flag. I love it on the Bermudan flag. I recently purchased and flew the Cook Islands. I felt like that.
Yeah, I saw that on your. Yeah,
I felt like that was a really good use. So I feel like it works in a bunch of different contexts, and the crests themselves are just so creative, and they can be so unique to wherever they're from.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I don't. I'm probably middle of the road as far as opinions on that, but I will say, like, nobody can say, like, we've had the UK flag, the Union flag, Union Jack, whatever you want to call it, come up numerous times as an overrated flag. But I don't think even the people that put it as overrated don't cop to it being a bad flag. It's not bad. Overrated and bad are different things, which is why we talk about, a little bit of both on here. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot worse things that can be in Canton. I mean, what's that one it's a French territory where most of the field is red. It has the French flag in Canton and some kind of like X design where the seal would be. And it's just not good. It just doesn't work.
I'm trying to
The French like Antarctic one kind of works, but even then they have to like outline the French flag in white, which you don't have to do with the Union flag.
And I do love also the British Antarctic territory where it's the white ensign with the coat of arms of the territory. And what I love about the coat of arms too on all of these flags is their uniqueness. And like the British Antarctic territory has a penguin as one of its supporters.
Okay, I was just about to look that. I thought it did. Yeah.
It has a penguin and I think a lion.
So, okay, so just real quick, and then we'll move on to your the one that got you into flags. But like, so Fiji, is it mostly the lighter blue that kind of does it for you, or if you could pick, well, it's hard to pick one element sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm picking between Fiji and a lot of the other British ensign flags, that's the main difference, is the shade of blue. Is that
Yeah, just the way.
your thing?
Yeah, just the way it catches the light when it's behind
Right.
it. It's just a beautiful shade of blue, and I think Fiji just nailed it with that color.
I agree. And like, I mean, yeah, on that one, I do agree. And I will say too, like, one of the games that I played at Nava 57 and have played, I think, once or twice since, I don't remember if it was a Patreon exclusive or not, but called Port Drapeau, which is portmanteau, but two flags mixed up. One of my favorite ones that I made, because the names have to mash up and the colors are swapped, was Tuvalu Luxembourg. Because the flag of Tuvalu with the colors of Luxembourg, now leaving the British ensign the way it is, but that like lighter blue of Luxembourg combined with what I did was, like, you know, I had a little artistic license, but alternate the stars like white and red. And it's pretty similar to the Fiji blue, and I do really like it. I accidentally created something that I liked,
Yeah,
which is a lot like this podcast.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I was thinking about other flags that incorporate that kind of shade of blue, and Saint Lucia also does as well.
There's that. There's, I mean, the Kazakhstan one even is a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of too many.
Argentina has it with the tri-band as the two top and bottom. Yeah, so
yeah, I guess that's true.
That color in the sun is just great.
Yeah, I do like that light blue, especially because, like you said, it changes things from the just red or dark blue of the rest of the Union flags. But anyway, all right, so we have to move on. We got a lot to cover today. So the way you put it in the doc, and I really like this, was gateway flag. So go ahead and tell us what your gateway flag is, which I assume means the one that got you into it.
Yes. So the flag that got me into flags was the flag of Sicily. I'm sure listeners are probably catching on to a theme here, but that my taste is awful. But what essentially how that happened is, or how I kind of got into flags in general, was I started to do a lot of research into my family's genealogy, probably about like 5, 6, 7 years now. And when my grandmother was alive, I got her side of the family, I got my grandpa's, and so on and so forth. And so as I started to look up these places and look up the cultures and how people dress, I started to encounter these places' flags. And so half of my family is Italian American, the other half is Slovak American. And so I knew what the Italian flag looked like. I was like, that's cool. I knew what the Slovak flag looked like. I was like, that's cool too. And then when I found out Sicily had a flag, and I saw Sicily's flag for the first time, I just remember being like, oh my God, I did not know you could do this with a flag. Like, just first, like, the colors were so interesting, and then it's just charged with the Trinacria, which is such a striking symbol that my girlfriend hates the flag for. You either love it or hate it for that reason.
I have it flying on my back deck as we speak. Should have brought it in probably, but whatever.
Oh yeah, no, it's just, and it's so unique, and it's so packed with symbolism, that after I had purchased that flag, because I was inspired to purchase it after I saw it, I just began flying flags outside of my family's home, and that's been history ever since. So, and that's how my collection grew as a result of the Sicilian flag.
And that makes sense, the way you worded it, gateway flag.
Yeah. That's
I mean, it is like, I mean, we were warned in school all about gateway drugs, which are, like,
right,
the one that'll get you into the whole scene, man.
Yeah.
And I guess they were right, at least as far as flags.
Yeah, I think there's a gateway for a lot of things, and I guess Sicily was my gateway into vexillology and
that's for sure. Last week I talked with Ted K, and both of us were saying the same thing about, like, well, when it started, I think he still does this, but at the beginning, like, I would collect a flag for every place that I went to, which, like, because then you have, like, some kind of tie to it, or you I don't know, at the very, very least, you have a memory of walking into a shop in this specific place and get it,
Right.
And yeah, it sounds like Sicily was that for you. Like, so, okay, so we've talked about the Sicilian flag. For the rare listener that doesn't know what the Sicilian flag is, or should I say, the one who hasn't like gone and looked it up on Google stat, give us a little rundown of what the Sicilian flag looks like.
So it is a 3x5, I believe, are the proportions, or if it's not, just imagine. Diagonally cut from, I believe, right to left.
Yeah. Top left to bottom right. Or yes.
I should know this. Yeah, and in the middle, and on the top it's yellow, on the bottom it is red. Those represent the historic colors of Rome. And in the middle, it is charged with the trinacria, which is a head of a gorgon, imagine Medusa, with 3 legs shooting out of it and stalks of wheat in between the legs. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No notes. If listeners or viewers know the Isle of Man flag with a Triskelion in the middle, picture that, but a little bit more like lifelike, realism wise.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the head and the wheat, and you got it.
You got yourself a nightmare fuel.
It's definitely nightmare fuel. But it's a very cool flag. I think I've had it flying on the back porch for like 3 weeks at this point, which doesn't normally happen with my flags.
Taking an extra liking to it, are you?
Yeah, I think so. I guess so. I just want somebody to comment on it, for Christ's sake. A neighbor, anything.
Right, what's that bizarre flag you got hanging out of your house? Well, actually.
Right? I can only imagine what my neighbors think about half the flags.
So we have a Soviet, I don't know, American, Irish, Turk who just... I'm just trying to think of like some flags that you've had, you know, that you're around.
Oh my god, yeah. If they hadn't met me, the things they would assume.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all just like, oh, he just collects. He's just having fun, you know.
We have talked to them, and they did mention it one time. They were like, "So you're putting up a bunch of flags."
Yeah,
I was like, "Yeah, I got this like show and YouTube show, or like YouTube show and podcast, and even our bug guy, like the Orkin Man guy, came over and he was like, a lot of flags, huh? Because a lot of them are stored in the basement where he's got a spray." Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I got this flag show. Here's, the QR for it. Like, check it out. And he's like, you know what? I'm actually pretty into this. So anyway, I'm going off on an entirely too long tangent. We have to get into your under and overrated. Which one would you like to start with?
I will start with my underrated flag.
All right.
Yeah. So my underrated flag is the flag of San Marino. If for those unfamiliar with the flag of San Marino, it is a horizontal bicolor, white at the top, that light blue on the bottom.
I'm seeing a theme.
Yeah, and in the middle is the coat of arms of the country, just charged right there. I chose this as my underrated flag, and this also ties into why I chose my overrated too. So I loved flag sessions, great content with the flag off, the subnational flag off. And so as I was trying to think about what my underrated flag would be, I went through some of the results on their flag offs.
Smart.
And I saw that San Marino was very, very low, despite the fact that I like it so much. And I was like, oh man, it's like, I think it got barely any votes. I don't even know if it made past like the first round of the game, or if it even made it into the pools. But it was again, for the same reason I love Fiji, it's that light blue color on the white, and I just think the coat of arms is I would say complex enough to the point where it doesn't offend you, or it's not too much. It's got, you got the nice 3 towers in the shield, and it's very ornate, but I just think it's great for the same reason I love Fiji.
I'm honestly, I agree with you. I'm a fan of that one. I own it, and despite some folks' opinion, do not own all flags. I own mostly ones that I like, not entirely, I will say. But yeah, San Marino, especially like as a micronation, like I wouldn't stumble upon that one. I went and searched that one out specifically because of a lot of the things that you said. I do like that contrast. I do love that blue. And yeah, as we're talking about this, I am seeing a little bit of a theme on that. And I don't disagree with it. I think part of what made me, as I was talking about before, that Tuva Luxembourg flag that I made, the shade of blue that's in Luxembourg's flag, I love it. And it's very similar to the one in San Marino. The Bavarian flag has like a Bavariant where the bottom part is just blue, the top part is white, and instead of the lozenges.
Right.
And as much as I like the lozenges, I really like even just that simple one, because I think of what you're talking about, the blue.
Yeah, it just works so well with so many, and it's not a color that you see so often. You know, we all see our red, whites, and blues. We all see a bunch of other different color combos, but you know, something about a light blue just kind of grabs your attention.
It's a very totally agree. And here's a thought too. Now that I'm thinking about these three countries in question, the ones that we're talking about, Fiji, San Marino, Luxembourg, one that I brought in. These are all very like. When was the last time any of these countries declared war on anyone? I can't think of it.
Well,
Luxembourg is probably the most recent, if not. Well,
I would imagine maybe reframing the question to be like, well, when did these gain independence? Because I know Fiji gained sovereign status somewhere in the 60s, I think 63, maybe. So one of the listeners can fact check me on that.
Sure, yeah. Well, more than one, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then I'm not entirely sure when San Marino was partitioned, but
oh my God, San Marino is like the world's oldest republic. I think it comes from like there were 3 digits, whatever year, 987. I just made that up because I don't know.
It sounds old.
But it's like kind of around there, I think. I guess like my point was less the declaring war part and more the like. The shade of blue kind of gives me like an almost inner peace, and it seems like it comes from these countries that also have a similar laid back, like, you know, attitude, or at least just aren't like drawn into international conflicts too much at all.
Non-threatening is just
yeah. And I
it's
think the blue, like, I don't think it's meant to, but I think it kind of speaks to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, and I know it tends to represent the water, but I mean, tranquility, you know, peace, being at level. I mean, imagine going on a battlefield, right? And you're looking across, you know, the ravine or the battlefield, and you see like a light blue flag that doesn't strike fear. You know what I mean?
Not necessarily.
Like the Union Jack, if there's an army behind it, the American flag, for a lot of people today, I suppose, is a threatening symbol. You know, the Chinese flag can be very intimidating, but something about a light blue, you know, just doesn't.
Yeah. That might be the title of this episode. There's something about a light blue.
There's something about a light blue.
There just really is, man. There just really is. Like, the further we get into it, the more I am like, oh, we need to move on. Which we do. All that aside, and I think we hit on some good stuff there. Let's go into your overrated flag.
So my overrated flag is the flag of Papua New Guinea. Again, like I said, I went through when I was playing. Actually, I remember this thought when I was playing or voting in the flag off, the Great Continental Flag Off. I was just watching Papua New Guinea just advance and advance and advance, and I was like, I don't get it. I that's just my opinion. I think I understand for why a lot of people it's a really nice flag and why it could be, you know, one of the best. But I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if I think it's a bird of paradise that's on the flag.
I think so. It's not a Quetzal because that's on the opposite side of the world, which Alex informed me on our TV tropes page. But anyway,
right. I think
it is.
Yeah, I think by all like good flag, bad flag metrics, which we'll talk about later, but like all of those metrics, yeah, it does pass as a good flag. It's just to me, I just feel like it's a little overrated. It's just not my style. I don't see what the appeal is. That's just me.
Right. Yeah, it's few colors. It doesn't break the rule of tincture, which is not actually in good flag, bad flag, but is kind of,
Kind of implied.
One of the other notes people have. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. With Papua New Guinea, I feel like, and obviously with your favorite being Fiji, you may feel different, but I think it benefits from a lot of the flags around it being, in my opinion, less good. And not even talking about Fiji, but talking about Australia, New Zealand in particular. And I know, yes, they're roughly in the same place. I know there's miles between them, but I think what it is to me is the Southern Star is done way better on the Papua New Guinea flag than it is on basically any other flag that tries to represent it that I can think of off the top of my head right now anyway. But I do agree that the yellow bird of paradise and the red, yeah, technically doesn't break rule of tincture, but it gets a little bit lost in there, and it is a little bit underwhelming, I guess, as a flag. I think the one thing I like about it is that the Southern Cross stands out, and other than that, kind of mid-range type things to say.
Right, and I do think the Southern Cross style as like a flag family, like if you were to create a flag family just around the Southern Cross,
yeah,
and also something that if you were to compile all the flags that have a Southern Cross, I took a good look at Brazil's flag. It does have the Southern Cross in it.
Oh, right. I guess it would. Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I just got it the other week, and I was looking at all the stars, around in the middle, and I was like, oh, that's the Southern Cross. No way. I never would have thought to check there, but I think,
right.
Yeah, when it comes to Australia and New Zealand, they kind of underperform when it comes to the Southern Cross, and I feel like Papua New Guinea's like it's onto something. It's right there. If there was, if there was something just different, maybe if instead of a diagonal, they made it like some kind of horizontal or vertical.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, I'm already like mapping out ways in my head to redesign that flag. The part of that sucks is that I'm not good at designing things, so I can map it out in my head all day long and be like, let's make this, and then it inevitably looks terrible. All right, great. So that was your favorite Fiji, your gateway was Sicily, underrated San Marino, overrated Papua New Guinea.
Right.
We are going to get into the bulk of the program here in just a minute. But first, I think it's time to skip to some ads.
Sounds good.
What's up, VexHeads, and welcome to an ad for a website. It's called stubforge.com, and what they do is they print actual paper tickets to events you've been to but probably had to use your phone to get into. For those of us who are collectors, which I assume is most of us, this is huge. I have started a spreadsheet of shows that I've been to but don't have tickets for, so I will be getting that bulk discount later that they offer. But a few years back, I did surprise my dad with some Paul McCartney tickets for his birthday, and I had to settle for printing some like QR code thing at work that legit, when I gave it to him, it took him a few seconds to even realize what it was. So Stubforge to the rescue. They print all their tickets on the same cardstock that all the sites and venues use. Their website is super intuitive and idiot-proof, which I know because I have used it as an idiot. They offer bulk discounts, as I mentioned, for literally anything over one ticket. Like, you don't have to be moving like 50. And if you are looking to fill out your back catalog with shows you've seen, don't have tickets for, Stubforge is your new best friend. And as someone planning a wedding here in 2024, my own, I am not a wedding planner, I looked at their invites, and yeah, we are going to send out these cool tickets along with our RSVP stuff. So, in other words, there's a lot you can do with these things. In any case, as I said, most of us here are collectors of various stripes. So head on over to stubforge.com to do what us VexHeads always do, fill that collection up. Back to you, Andy, or another ad. All right, and we are back more with Nicholas Signorello here, and we are going to just go ahead and get into it. Nicholas has a lot to say on good flag, bad flag, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on this pamphlet, and also, I guess, flag design in general. So basically, how this kind of all started is I've been involved in the vexillological community for about a good couple of years. I've been a member of NAVA for almost a year, and I remember when I watched the infamous Ronan Mars city flags are crap TED Talk. That kind of got me more into paying attention to what flags are out there and what people choose to represent themselves with, right? And so when I signed up for NAVA, I got a copy of Good Flag, Bad Flag in the mail, which every new NAVA member does receive. And I've also been paying attention to flag redesign competitions. States have recently redesigned their flags in the past couple of years. And I always seem to see this pamphlet making its way somewhere in the redesign process, whether or not a state or municipality or whatever cites this as a reason for how they came up with their design in general, or it's just exists in the flag design or the vexillography community as sort of like almost like a staple. Like this has become like a staple of what is a good flag and what is a bad flag, it seems to me. And as somebody who, I went to school for philosophy, and someone who loves to question and someone who tends to be very skeptical, I tend to draw a little bit of skepticism whenever something like this comes out, where you have this hardened set fast rules, or not hard set fast, I don't like the way that sounded, but like hard and fast rules to what is a quote unquote good or what is quote unquote a bad flag. And I feel like that might I have some criticism of that, but I want to get into what Ted has to say and what he puts in his pamphlet to get an idea of where he might be coming from with this. So
yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah. So when Ted is going through, what a flag should be, he says that it should represent a place, organization, or person. That's no doubt. Should be recognizable at a distance. It should be reproducible, which I thought was interesting, and it should reflect intended use. So a flag on a pole, it should be designed that way. If it's going to be a long hanging banner, it should be designed that way. If it's going to be a car, whatever, a magnet. So it should a flag should have all of those qualities, which I don't have any problems
qualms with.
That technically wraps up everything. And then he gives a short history saying that flags were developed from heraldry, they were used for military purposes. These are all historical uses of what flags were for. And then he includes this quote from an American politician, William Porcher Miles, that a flag should be simple, readily made, and capable of being made up in bunting. It should be different from the flag of any other country, place, or people. It should be significant. It should be readily distinguishable at a distance. The color should be well contrasted and durable. And lastly, and not least important, it should be effective and handsome. All of that all of those sentiments, I feel like Ted kind of incorporates in one way or another into his principles, which we will definitely get into. And then you have...
I'm sorry. There are a few words like that or words in that stick out to me. Like, it should be significant. I'm not really clear on what Miles meant by that.
By it should be significant?
By it should be significant. Like, are we talking about significant in that it signifies something, or it should be, I guess probably in that sense, right?
Right.
I can't think of a better Yeah, okay. I can't think of a better way to put that.
Yeah,
But
that seems,
significant, okay. Just
that
not
seems
in the
to be-
modern sense, because he's writing this in 1861. So, okay.
yeah, and there'll be, and having read a bunch of texts, from that.
Right. Sorry, that was the one thing that I was hung up on, but the rest of it, yes. What you said, yeah.
Right. And so this is where Ted then goes into his 5 principles, which, I'm sure frequent listeners will know, but in case anyone who doesn't, the 5 principles are roughly keep it simple. The flag should use meaningful symbolism. It should use 2 to 3 basic colors, no lettering or seals whatsoever, and it should be distinctive or related. And I'll start with the keep it simple portion, because in the pamphlet, Kay writes that a flag should be so simple that a child can draw it from memory, right? So,
Yep.
And he says that flags drape, they flap in the wind, they're not laid out like a piece of paper, they're moving. And he also mentions that complicated flags are expensive to produce. So there's this sort of like almost cost efficiency component to his principles, which I think is interesting.
Right.
And he says that simple designs are the best designs. So the more simple, the more, I don't want to say minimalist, but the more simple a design is, the more effective. And that most poor designs have a better design in them somewhere. Like, so if you're looking at a flag with a seal on it, or an SOB or seal on a bed sheet, you should look for it like within that seal to pull out a better flag design. Or if you have a coat of arms, like Amsterdam, they pull out that flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
My only sort of question about this principle is, why does a child need to draw it?
Like, why a child?
Yeah, I mean, I understand like why. I might be being too pedantic here, but I think that when it comes to national symbols, I don't know if it necessarily matters if a child can draw it. I think if a child can recognize it, or if it's an easily recognizable symbol, that's more important, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, well, I don't. Yeah, hard to say growing up in Tennessee, where both are true. Obviously, I can recognize it even as a young child. It's up in every classroom as well, which helps. Recognize it at a distance, up close, whatever. But also, the Tennessee one is very easily reproducible. You may miss the white outline around the blue that fimbriates it from the red.
Right.
But other than that, you're not going to miss too much. Yeah, I don't know why it specifically has to be a child recreating it. That's a good question. Because like you said, yeah, recognizability seems like the most. I guess my guess would be what they're doing there is they're saying it's almost like one of those like clinical-ish studies where it's like, okay, so you can recognize the flag. Now reproduce what you just saw. Like, here's an image.
Right.
Look at it for 5 seconds. It goes away. Reproduce what it was, kind of thing. But again, that doesn't really explain the child part, because I'd probably have trouble with some of that. I mean, even for simpler flags that don't have seals.
I think with the child, it's more to like it should be so simple that a young person or somebody can just draw it really quick, or that anybody should be able to do it from memory. I might be getting caught too much on the child part, but it's I
Yeah.
I think that and
they can't just say like it should be so simple that even an adult can draw it.
Yeah, or an idiot can draw it. Yeah, but it should be
clean it up.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And
honestly, I bet that's a bit of it.
Yeah, and some examples that Ted uses are, a good flag is that like, the Republic of the Congo, Bangladesh, Alaska. It's these flags that are very, very simple, and have very simple design elements. But what does the flag of Japan just need? You just need a sheet of paper and a red circle, and then boom, there you go. Unlike the American flag, where you have to individually draw out 13 stripes and 50 stars and shit.
Right. I mean, arguably, a kid's gonna mess that up more often than the Japan one, like hands down.
Yeah.
You're not gonna count to 50. You're not gonna get the 13 exactly. Oh, maybe you ended on white on accident or whatever. Like the Malaysian flag does on purpose for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I agree that should be the first rule or that that's the best way to word it. But I think I think we get what they're going for, even
Right.
if we don't necessarily agree with those things.
Right. It should be, yeah, exactly. I agree, more or less with that sort of idea that it should be simple. Just because the medium of what it's on, like I said, it's not on a piece of paper. It's not like stamped onto a side of a building. It's moving. It's got to be fluid. It's got to be recognizable that way. And then some bad examples are West Virginia, Turkmenistan behind you, and Bay of Tunisia. So why did you think Turkmenistan is good, or should be in a good category?
I like the Turkmen flag. Yeah. Do
Yeah.
I think it's reproducible by a child? Not exactly. They'd get the red band and they'd put 5 things in it, maybe color those 5 things with just whatever colors they want, which is fun in its own right. But no, I think it does a good job at the other things that a flag needs to do, which is it's significant, as we discussed. I'm not gonna like someone who's a flag person is not gonna look at this and get it confused for anything. I think it's distinct. I think it's interesting. Is it detailed and does it use more than the prescribed amount of colors? Yes, obviously.
Right.
And behind the scenes a little bit too, what I was wanting to do was put the Turkmenistan one up here, which is one of their examples of a bad one in Good Flag, Bad Flag, and put the Alaska flag up here, which is an example of a good one that I don't like, which Frederic will be pleased to hear, which was actually drawn by a child the first time, not just, reproduced by them.
Right.
But I know for a fact that we'll get into this, but to say that the rules, that the guidelines are not hard and fast. I like this one more than I like the Alaska one. I ended up putting the Irish Republic one behind me, for those who can't see, who are just listening. Because yes, it is a flag with letters on it, which is one of the other things, but I think it is so significant, to go back to that word, that it could not get confused for anything else, and it makes the exact point that it needs to, exactly how it needs to. Right. Despite breaking these rules. So anyway, that's a little bit on my background. But yeah, the Turkmenistan flag I don't think is that bad, even if it breaks the rules.
Well, and that takes us into like the second principle, was that a flag should use meaningful symbolism. So its images, colors, and patterns should relate. So despite the complexity of the patterns on the Turkmen flag, it does carry a lot of weight, symbolizing, the people of Turkmenistan, their cultural heritage, their lineage. And then you have the stars and crescent, which I assume refer to Islam or whatever the local religion might be.
I think the 5 stars I think are 5 tribes, which kind of goes along with the 5 carpet goals here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, you also got the 5 pillars of Islam too. I guess they.
It could be that.
Yeah, it could be.
There's some that are tribes. There are some that are pillars in these.
Yeah. It's flags from that region. Whenever they incorporate the star and the crescent, it's I think it tends to mean that. I could be wrong, like I said, but yeah. So Turkmenistan the flag does carry a lot of weight when it incorporates that. Is it complex? Yeah. And Ted goes further to say that the design suggestions, it should focus on one primary symbol. The colors should carry meaning, and he makes a style. He gives a style recommendation saying that diagonal stripes are an alternative to horizontal and vertical stripes, which I think is great. I don't think diagonals are utilized enough, really. I know there's several countries that use diagonal. Sicily uses a diagonal. Republic of the Congo.
Look at the Congo that we talked about. Yeah,
exactly. Diagonals are a really great alternative. And then his examples of good flags are the Iroquois or Haudenosaunee. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Italy.
Yeah, here behind me.
Oh yeah, there it is. I
own Eric Hart, the designer of the Syracuse flag. Yeah, gave me that one.
Nice.
Yeah. I do like that he used that as one of his good examples, and that he contrasted it with the Navajo one, which I agree both of his points on this. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then his bad, Navajo, the Libyan Green Banner, the infamous Green Banner, and the Organization of American States, which is an international organization. So, which on that flag of that organization, if a country were to change a flag, they would have to make that adjustment on the organizational flag.
Right.
I think it's hysterical. So if like there's a color shift or they want like a lighter or darker version, you got to make that change. So yeah, meaningful symbolism. Good. Check.
Those. No, I'm sorry. I've been butting in too much, but it's also funny that two of the examples on this page, on the meaningful symbolism page, Libya and Organization of American States, can and have been changed. Not
really?
necessarily by virtue of being bad. You know, like in the case of Libya, it was a political change, but in the OAS one that you just talked about, like, yeah, I mean, anytime someone leaves, joins, changes a flag, like it's got to be changed. So these are not great flags in their own right, but also based on the fact that they have been changed, have to be changed, whatever. That kind of tells you, you know, everything you need to know, I think. So
yeah, one under regime change, the other just because they're at the mercy of the countries they decide to represent. Yeah,
different cases, but
so yeah, and I think that's a good summation of the meaningful symbolism. This principle that I tend to have, I don't want to say the most beef with, but I feel like people might take it a little bit too literally, is the only stick to 2 to 3 basic colors, which for people who are experienced in design or people who are experienced in flag design, you can get away with more than that. I feel like when it comes to other countries, like South Africa is the one that's always quoted as being a flag that uses more than 2 to 3 definitely colors, but it works together well. It just happens to work.
If I'm right, he has that as an exception in the back of the pamphlet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And we will get to exceptions because that's my favorite part of the whole pamphlet.
Right. Sorry. Cut that. Tara, cut that.
It's all right. It's okay. But the reasoning that Ted gets the reasoning that Ted has for this principle is that 2 to 3 colors can create effective contrast. More colors means it's harder to distinguish. This one I didn't understand should be reproducible in grayscale. So I guess if you were going to shift the colors of your flag to grayscale, you should be able to distinguish it. I don't necessarily think that's a good reason.
I don't think. What's the point of showing a flag in grayscale? Like, with all due respect to, I don't know who, some arbitrary person who likes to show flags in grayscale, but I honestly don't understand what the point of that is, other than restrictions on you know, printing and like monetarily, you know, like, all right, sure. But I feel like if I'm printing a flag book, I'm going for color at least on those pages. And so the grayscale thing, like, I'm sorry, maybe this is, I'll try to keep my rant very minimal, but like, I don't know, the grayscale thing pisses me off because it's like, who's doing these in grayscale? And why?
Yeah, where are we finding these? I mean, you know, cameras are in color now. You know, we have all this technology. It's why. But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting point that he made, that it should be in grayscale.
It is, yeah.
Fabric comes in limited colors, and from what I understand, certain colors are cheaper than others. So I guess this is a way to sort of, and if you want to make your flag more affordable, use a prescribed set of colors that are easily, you know, whatever. And and that's right to the next point. More colors, more cost. The more colors your flag has, the more it's costly maybe to reproduce.
Sure. Do you think, and I'm sorry to cut you off again, but do you think that's also antiquated like the grayscale thing is? Like, do you think that maybe we'll need to update these? Because in a sense, yes, if you are getting a flag that's fully sewn, that you're probably going to pay like $100 or close to $100 for, like, yes, absolutely, yes. Nowadays, so many flags are screen printed or whatever that other dyeing method is, that to me, the reason or the thing behind this guideline, I keep wanting to say rules. The thing behind this guideline is monetary, like not exclusively, but a lot of it is.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just toss that completely out the window, then we have a little less of a case for this one. Not none.
Right.
But between that and the grayscale, like it's hard for me to not think of this third one as more antiquated than the other four.
Right, because when you look at the way that flags were historically made, just being hand sewn, and so you had a limited amount of fabric colors. You had only it could have only so many elements. That a flag needed to have that design principle, and need to have that principle, so that way it can be easily reproduced. Right, it's for reproducibility. But like you said,
Totally understandable. Yeah.
and this is kind of gets into like the criticism, but we live in a day and age where technology affords us the ability to, like you said, screen print or manufacture more complicated flag designs in a variety of different ways, that it does feel a little antiquated to say that something should be reproduced in grayscale, or something it's going to be more costly so a flag might be more costly to produce if it
Right.
has more colors in it. Which, I mean, the point still stands on the cost portion, but it does feel a little
Yes.
bit like that might not be something we might have to worry about.
It shouldn't be weighted as heavily as it used to be, is I guess maybe how I would sum it up. My opinion.
Right, and so would the flag of the Iroquois Confederacy, would that violate that, because purple's was a very hard color to come by. It was a very expensive color to come by. And it's a flag that's majority purple. So is that a bad flag because it's in what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's not in a very cost efficient. It's not a very cost efficient color to produce.
Right. Right.
But it's still a good flag.
Yes.
It's just it uses an unorthodox color as its primary color, which I don't really see as a problem.
Because it's still doing it's only got two colors. One, if you count white as a metal, but yeah.
Right.
And I'm sorry, like I know I'm messing with the format here. We had pros and cons, but I think it's these are things that I can't not get out. It's just me.
Go ahead.
It's just me, man. But no, we're getting into we're really getting into it. Okay. You want to go ahead and move on to number 4?
Yeah, sure. So no lettering or seals. Now, okay, this one I can see Ted's point, and I can also see the opposite. So never use writing of any kind or an organization seal. So, and his reason is that words defeat the purpose of a flag. So if your flag has the name of what it represents, it defeats the purpose of it. Lettering is nearly impossible to read from a distance. So while a flag is waving in the air, you can't really read it. It's hard to sue. Again, with modern technology, I think we can kind of set that reason to the side. Not easily adaptable to size variations. Right, because if you shrink a flag small enough, you're not going to be able to read the writing. Words are not reversible, and seals were designed for placement on paper. So the last portion is something that I have that seals were designed for placement on paper. I have a little bit of a kind of bone to pick with that reason. And the reason being is because when you see the advent of seals, they were placed on ribbons. So you would have ribbons that were hung from a document, and then the seal would be placed on that ribbon. Yeah, it's still flat, but it's just hanging there. And seals were a way to establish credibility and to indicate that this entity of which this seal has been designated is a legitimate entity. And that's why you have countries that would adopt coats of arms for similar reasons, because that would give a sense of legitimacy. Seals too, when it comes to certain political bodies or organizations, it comes from that tradition. And so when it comes to flags incorporating their seal or their coat of arms, and I guess you can say from my favorite flag and my underrated flag that I don't really care about that. So it's like,
right. Yeah.
It's something that I feel like if every flag were to take off their flag, the coat of arms, then we would be left with a much less interesting pool of flags in order to pick from. I think seals and coats of arms could add a certain character. And also there's a historical reason that was made by someone who's criticized these principles, is that, like I said, back to the whole seal is a form of establishing a seal or a coat is a form of legitimacy. when the U.S. flags were being hauled out, almost it seems en masse. If you go and look at the Wikipedia article for U.S. state flags, and you were to look at the dates that they were all adopted, about half of the U.S. state flags were adopted in the beginning of the 19th century, so like 1900 to 1925. You almost have
20th. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you almost from like 1900 to 1925, you have half of the U.S. flags being designed in that period. And
Right.
when they're being designed, I guess, the designers looked to the image of the seal and thought, okay, they could have thought, okay, well, this is just, let's just put that on a flag and call it a day. That tends to be the thing that people tend to fixate on. But criticism of this is that, like I said, seals were an important mark of legitimacy. So the flag, to legitimately represent the state, included the seal to add that extra layer of legitimacy, or that extra layer of credence, that if I'm going to pick any image
Right.
to put on a banner, right, to represent something like that, I'm going to put the seal. And it started this tradition of including seals on flags, which might have been the aesthetic preference at the time, but it also had this sort of credibility aspect to it, where it's like, okay, we're not just going to create a flag with some arbitrarily picked designs. Like, we're going to pick an established design that represents the state and put it on a flag. Boom, you have an SOB.
You're saying that gives it more like gravitas, like more like weight behind it. It's like, okay, the state has decreed, or the state want. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, I get the why. The why makes sense. It's interesting the ones that didn't. Honestly, like, given the historical context that you just laid out, it is really interesting the ones that went a different way, because, like you said, most of them did go that way. I mean, South Carolina obviously stands out. But even then, I can't remember. I don't want to talk out of my ass. I think they had another one pre then that had it might have still had a tree on it. The only one I can be certain of, Tennessee had a flag that I think dates to the early 1860s, which you may note is the start of the Civil War, or just about. And it does have the state seal. It must have been mid-Civil War, because it's the Confederate, not battle flag, but the CSA, like, national civil, whatever they use it for, flag, the bars and stars, and it has the Tennessee seal, or coat of seal, I think, really, because it is the Great Seal of the state of Tennessee, or whatever,
right?
Up where those stars are. And I think, honestly, I mean, there's other processes at work, of course, but I think we kind of got lucky coming up with that one in like 1863 or whenever, and then getting our asses handed to us, and then being like, no, this is not your flag. At least in early Reconstruction. Now they allow whatever, Georgia. But but like early Reconstruction, they were like, no. So I think we kind of lucked out, and we're like, well, we got to do something else. There's 3 grand divisions. Throw some blue on the side. Like, you know.
And they came up with a great flag design, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like inspired from that seal or that ornament that used to represent the state. And so that's why I'm not totally against seals on, or coats of arms on flags, because of that history. And I do think it adds a certain level or degree of character to a flag that, you know, maybe a simpler design might not lend. And even if we were to scrap away the historical part, even if we were to make an appeal to history as a reason why we should continue this practice, it's just like, well, you can do that, but let's create some more unique, maybe like background designs or whatever. For areas that might not have a very distinguishing feature. So if you're looking at like a country, for example, like, you can get away with a simpler flag because it has to represent everybody. But if you're creating a flag for a municipality, the seal isn't a bad option to go with. If you're looking at designing a flag, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if we're totally in agreement on that, but I do
Yeah.
definitely see your point on it, at the very least. And I think the New Jersey sized elephant in the room is that flag
Mhm.
behind you there. I'm wondering, I mean, I'll ask, I'm very used to asking open-ended questions, but I think this may take the cake. Thoughts on the New Jersey flag?
So it's okay. It's like like so for me, it's I don't
Okay.
hate it. I'm not in love with it, but
Yeah.
hence why after I created my TikTok and Instagram account, I waited
Right.
so long to fly it. I didn't. It wasn't really that big of a deal to me, but I think what I will say this: what New Jersey does that other states don't do, with the exception of New Mexico, is the color of the field. So even if you were to create, if you were to lay out, you know, all the U.S. flags just on a
Yeah.
table, you could pretty easily point out New Jersey if you were
You
familiar
could
with
pick out New Jersey. Like, yeah, I'll give it that. I think
it.
even in my state flag tier list that I did for like the Patreon and then later posted the graphic of on Instagram, like I did
Mhm.
have New Jersey above all the blue SOBs, except for maybe like one or two that I had some weird soft spot for. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like, you can definitely point it out.
Right.
Whether they're in alphabetical, not, and you're not going to confuse it for New Mexico, which, as you
Hmm.
said, is the only other one with a similar. Um, Even if Maine changes theirs back to the 1901 flag, that's a different buff. Dave Martucci
Yeah.
and I talked all about these different like buff shades of buff. Basically, it's all depending on the deer's hide that you're tanning and how you tan it. Basically,
Oh, interesting.
um, yeah. So even if Maine changes back, that New Jersey one is not going to get confused for it. I wouldn't think. Um, but my opinion is it still leaves a little something to be desired, but it is far and away the best. Well, let me make sure. I think it's far and away the best of the SOBs that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stand by that.
I think it delivers pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be simplified. I do love the coat of arms, like Liberty and Ceres, because
Mhm.
despite if you ever been to New Jersey, it's called the Garden
Yes,
State.
plenty.
Yeah, it's called the Garden State. Where I'm from in South Jersey, I could drive 30 minutes north and 30 minutes west, and I'm hitting farmland each way. So it's like, so I get, that agricultural sentiment. Could there be a better flag? Yeah, of course there could be. Of course there could be a better
Yeah.
design, and I don't think there's a lot of desire in the state yet, at least, to
Mhm.
redesign. I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be mad if they do redesign it. I hope it's a good redesign, but I think.
Weird question because I know. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh no, it's I just think I think it works for the state. I don't really have dislike or have a particular
Yeah.
liking for it, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, again, not my favorite, but as far as they go, I think it is the best. I was going to ask, do you think if and when Pennsylvania changes their flag, since they are I think, you know, mileage wise, probably your biggest neighbor, do you think that may kick anything off, or hard to tell?
maybe. I mean,
I guess I'm asking you to, read the future here at this point, but
well, I think that I mean, we saw in like Minnesota, for example,
Mhm.
Illinois started a commission to assess their flag redesign. So definitely geography could have a impact on that. And I know Tara Stark is working on the Keystone flag. So if another flag in the vicinity of New Jersey decides to change, I don't know, maybe the governor might take a look at our flag and
Yeah,
see if it seems to be like those also tend to be run based on like how politically advantageous it might be. So you have
sure.
for you have the Mississippi redesign, that was obviously because of the Black Lives Matter protests, and then I
Yeah.
guess
And
so you had that kind of level of social pressure, and I don't think it was like politically difficult for. I mean, you're going to have your dissenters across the board, no matter wherever you go, but like Minnesota, I don't think they took a lot of political. It's not really that big of a deal, maybe. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there's a vocal minority, I would say, but that's most places now. So
right,
yeah.
but a lot of people are just indifferent to the whole thing entirely. It's only the
And
people like
yeah,
us that really
that's probably the majority is people that are
the people who care.
different either way.
Yeah. And so I
All
guess
right. Yeah. So all right. So that was Andy's tangents. Everyone's favorite segment.
Speaking of New Jersey, I guess like that whole like be distinctive or related bit. Avoid duplicating other flags, but use similarities to show connections, right? Which I think is interesting now that I think about it when you talk about seals, because in way like how we were discussing earlier about how if you were to take the Southern Cross motif and turn that into a flag family, or if you were to take the Scandinavian cross, it's almost like in the U.S. you have this sort of mini flag family of its own where it's just seals on bed sheets, like that in itself is almost like a flag family. It originates out of a similar tradition during a very short period of time. So they are related to each other. So even if I don't know what that state is, I can still probably guess that it's a U.S. state flag. And so RK's reasoning for like being distinctive or related is most good designs are taken. Unfortunately, you can only have so many bicolors or tricolors or whatever. However, a flag's design can recall other flags. So, for example, the flag of Arcadia, which is just the French flag with the gold star, I think, on the fly, that it relates back to the French heritage of the Arcadian people in the U.S. Similarly to British ensigns, you have or flags that incorporate the British flag in Canton that they harken back to a similar period in history. And it also shows, like, again, like solidarity, that connection, which I think this principle is the principle I like the most, because I feel like as someone who likes to design or redesign flags, that it can be difficult just to come up with your own design just on your own. So if I were to create the flag of let's say, if I were to redesign the flag of a country, right, I wouldn't necessarily, or a region, I wouldn't necessarily know the important, if that place didn't have any symbols, let me just harken back to where it came from. And so a flag could show that heritage or show that connection, without having to create it, without the intimidating factor of creating a whole new design by scratch and then just kind of throwing out the project entirely.
Yeah. It's be distinctive or be related. It's an interesting one because on the surface, obviously those things are opposites. But when you really get into the design and pretty much everything that you just laid out, it does make sense. For an example, as of you and I talking right now, the most recent episode that's come out is Luke Schroer's, and he did he did the U.S. state flag redesigns, and he's got like his own like almost kind of like signature on most of them. It's like a little diagonal line, whatever. So that they are all related by having this one characteristic, but other than that one characteristic, they are all distinct. They're all different. It brings to mind a lot of Tennessee flags. I was up in Knoxville 2 weekends ago and was lucky enough to be there on a windy day and caught some good like county flags, and even the fire department flag are all plays on the Tennessee flag. Granted, maybe they switched the red and the blue, and then instead of the TriStar, there is, the logo of the thing or the county or whatever in the middle, but they all play off it. And I mean, to your point, into the point of what he's trying to do is like, they're unmistakable, right? They are distinct, especially when you switch the red and the blue. In I think it's the Knoxville Fire Department's case. I'll post it before anyway. They're unmistakably Tennessee flags, but they do deserve like a closer look, because you're like, okay, I see what it's playing off of, but I want to get a little bit closer and see exactly what it is. And I think that's part of like kind of where all this comes together here, because yeah, you want people to look at your flag, know what it is. I mean, it feeds into all the other rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like, yeah, it's my favorite too, I think.
and I think this is also, I was thinking about this before the show, is that flags don't have any inherent meaning, right? So, and
Right.
what I mean by that is that when you design a flag, you're assigning the meaning to that flag. You're
Yeah.
assigning, like, this color means this symbol means this, right? So I can't, I mean, someone with my scope, I guess, when it comes to flag knowledge, is that, like, yeah, maybe if you show me a particular flag, I might know where it is. But if I'm driving through Knoxville, let's say, and I happen to pass by that fire department, I would look at the flags on that pole, and I might not necessarily know that they represent what they represent, but I can probably assume. And let's just also imagine, yeah, I don't know where I am. That okay, so I'm in. So I know that's Tennessee's flag, and then that flag underneath that is related to Tennessee some way or another. I might not know exactly how, but that's the flexibility of creating a related flag, is that
You
can
get it.
yeah, you get it. Yeah, exactly. I might not know what that flag is particularly, but I know that it's related to this other thing somehow, some way, based on its design. And
Yeah.
and also just another note on this, like, distinctive principle, and then we'll move on, is that it's almost like I said earlier that, or actually Ted says earlier, that a lot of good flag designs are taken. So what if a way to be distinctive is to include a more complex design onto the flag? What if a way to be more distinctive is to have a device or a charge? Yes, that might be a little bit more complex, but if you were to put it side by side with the next closest looking flag, is it distinctive? Is it not? Could you tell the difference?
Right.
So it almost like, well, I think that third principle kind of encapsulates what Ted's whole project is, to create a distinctive flag that's good to use, and that can serve all of these purposes. The next part, being the exceptions, is the part of the pamphlet which I think gives a lot of leeway, and what I think a lot of flag designers don't focus on enough.
Yeah, let's actually, yeah, let's touch on that first. We'll go to break after we do that, but yeah, I'm kind of dying to know. Yeah, I love exceptions to not rules, but exceptions to guidelines.
Right. So in the conclusion to Good Flag, Bad Flag, Ted K gives some other recommendations. Standard flag shapes, mind proportions, avoid charges on the fly end, because that can decrease the flag's lifespan. I didn't know that. Canton is an area of honor, so if you were to place the device in the canton, that means you're honoring, or that's an important region of the flag to put something, and it's the most visible. And then he gets into his exceptions, which I think are really important, especially, like I said, that a lot of these flag redesign or design contests are relying so heavily on the principles per se. They're not necessarily minding this exceptions clause that Ted K kind of builds into his pamphlet, saying, like, look, there's going to be great flag designs that are going to violate these rules. Or these principles. Like, he gives the example of Colorado. It has a C in it, but that's a great design element. Maryland is distinctive, but it's busy. Military flags necessarily need numbers and letters in order to distinguish different units. There's a bunch of different exceptions to these rules. And so when you have these flag design or these design competitions that are relying so heavily on these principles, people can forget that, oh, I can still create a good flag even if it violates one of these guidelines. Right? Like exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. I honestly can't even think of anything to add to that. You said it perfectly.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. That last bit especially, you can still create a good flag, even flouting a couple of these principles. And you've got it here in the doc. And I don't know if you wanted to say it or if I can say it, but it does say, depart from these rules with caution and purpose, which I think it also just says in the thing. Yeah, okay, it's the last sentence before the flags. All right, then I'm not stealing it from you. I'm stealing it from Ted et al. Ted al? It doesn't matter. Yeah, with caution and purpose, because yeah, as you just laid out, I mean, and the examples that he uses, Maryland, California, Colorado. Sure, Colorado has a C, but honestly, it seems more like a design element than a letter in their case. Now, California, obviously, those are letters, but I've talked about it to death almost on this show, but it is a flag that people recognize around the world. People in California are definitely proud of. And if we're going back to, like, if we're distilling it to, does it do its job and is it recognizable, then yeah, even despite the letters and everything. The other two, Maryland and South Africa, the other two that are in the book, I mean, fulfill the same missive, I guess. So
right.
Yeah. All good rules have exceptions, as you put. And
and
think
that's like the main thing that I think that's just like really important, is that these aren't laws, right? That these were published, these principles were published after after a series of studies that were administered by NAVA, and Ted K specifically published them, and that's getting to the state provincial flag surveys. So NAVA, for those who are unaware, NAVA in 2001 and 2004 released these flag surveys for people, both NAVA and non-NAVA members, to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 in a variety of categories how well they think a flag did in a particular area. And these surveys have been sort of the thing that has propped up this pamphlet. So in 2001, NAVA did a state and provincial flag survey where they had 72 flags. The survey was hosted by NAVA through its website. Participants had to rate the flag on a scale of 0 to 10 based on their personal opinion, and it lasted about a couple of months. Now, the results were, the top flags were New Mexico, Texas, and Quebec. I think those flags are, well, what's your thought? What do you think about that result?
I feel like Texas's flag is very mid. It is fine. I think Texas's flag would not be as popular if it weren't for Texans being as fucking loud and obnoxious as they are. Well, and I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about Texas's flag.
Well, I think in a later survey, they mentioned that one of the reasons Texas got so high is because a lot of very proud Texans came and descended upon the survey.
Right.
And which goes to show you don't have to have an amazingly designed flag for people to love it, and vice versa. You can have a great flag design, people can hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite. It does those things that I said. It's recognizable at a distance, and it's signify. You're not confused about what it signifies. So does it work? Sure. Do I love the design? Yeah.
And this is where the analysis. This is where the analysis gets really interesting, because Kay says that the principles predicted the survey consensus with 85% accuracy, which he kind of uses to tout that these principles or the flags that were rated, that were the most highly rated, align with these principles laid out in Good Flag, Bad Flag, to an 85% accuracy, and that when you get into the more middle range flags, like maybe once you get out of the top 10 or top 20, it almost looks like the flags in that middle of the survey are almost where they are based on just personal preference. So if I like this flag over this flag, it's only when you get to that top margin that the principles in Good Flag, Bad Flag tend to show. Everywhere else, it almost seems like it's just by preference.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't really thought about it or seen it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, and the bottom flags were Georgia's 2001 design, where they had like the seal, and then they had the banner at the bottom with all the historic
Yes.
flags.
Sonny Perdue got voted out of office based on that flag. I mean,
That's
a couple other things,
how bad
honestly,
be.
but like, I mean, it's
Yeah,
that bad. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and and what the good flags boil down to in the survey are flags that are strong, simple, and distinct. In the 2004 American City Flag Survey, which focused mainly on cities now, the methodology was it was internet survey hosted on NAVA's website, distributed through NAVA News, the email list, Flags of the World, Vexillum, whatever, and everyone who responded in the 2001 survey. Again, rate the design qualities of 150 flags on a scale of 1 to 10, which then corresponded to a letter grade A through F. And that ran for about a couple months. And so what you have is the results not dissimilar from what you would expect out of the first survey, where you had Washington, D.C., and Chicago and Denver placing on top. And again, just in the middle, you had just a bunch of flags, seals on bed sheets that could have been picked out, that are almost arbitrarily ranked. And it had a great response. It was 66 NAVA members and 415 non-NAVA. The average flag, I think, well, I don't know what the average flag score was. I think it was like 4.3, maybe. But
it hasn't aired yet, but I think Ted will have said it on the episode before yours. I forget what it is though.
Yeah, I see the average score is 4.3, and
okay, yeah.
2/3 of the city flags scored below 5 points, which either tells you about how well flags are designed in U.S. cities, or you can draw your own interpretation from that statistic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And then
it's all relative too. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's all relative. Again, Ted states that the highest scoring flags all embody the 5 basic flag principles. The accuracy percentage went up 4 points, so now 89%. And which makes me feel like after this was introduced in, I want to say like 2001 or somewhere around there, when you have this pamphlet in circulation for so long, especially amongst NAVA members, and as it works its way into the mind of the public, right? That these are what constitute good flag design.
My city mayor has it on his desk as we prepare a redesign. But yes, it's working its way more in, to your point.
It's working so much into, it's almost becoming dogmatic, which is a major criticism of good flag, bad flag, is that these design principles are becoming dogmatic. And I think what these surveys might be doing that isn't explicit in the survey, but I think can be read out, is that this pamphlet's gaining more traction. More people are viewing are scoring the attractiveness on flags possibly based on certain flag principles. So I don't want to say it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy,
right?
To say that 89% of the results align with these principles that have been in circulation for, I would say, 3 years at this point. That what it's doing is it's showing that people are picking up on these, rather than it, despite the fact that these surveys are what's kind of propping up this pamphlet, I don't want to say the legitimacy,
right, correlation, causation, all that fun stuff. Yeah,
and Kay, he says that there's an explicit factor or variable, which is aesthetic attractiveness. Like,
that's why I had to censor our episode, because of that explicit factor.
Explicit. People have different aesthetic attitudes towards different flags, which has also made me feel like, similarly to how seals were put on bed sheets back in the early 20th century, that was an aesthetic choice, that was a aesthetic preference. Now now that we're in an age where, there's more technology, there's more access to resources, flags can get more complicated if they want to. It
Mhm.
seems like this pamphlet is reflecting aesthetic preference rather than hard, fast, these are good flag design principles. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
exactly, because it's a subjective thing to start with. I mean, it's like, it would be the same thing as saying, like, well, what is good art? Well, good art has to be photorealism, and it has to have these. Well, what if I like impressionism? A little bit of difference, obviously, a little bit more range maybe in the art world, but like, yeah, it's inherently subjective. So I think that's why Nava and we've been talking about, like, why they're not hard fast rules, why they are guidelines, and why there are exceptions to them, and why the tide moves a little bit on some of these things.
right.
Is because, I mean, taste changes in the art world, taste changes in, it makes sense that it would in the graphic design and therefore flag world as well. So yeah, it all wraps up nicely like that, I think.
Right, and Ted says that there's a maniacal fascination, his words not mine, with putting seals on
Sure.
flags, which comes across as interesting because given the history, it just seems like, you know, if you were just to read that at face value, it's like you'd be like, yeah, why do people just kind of have this? Why do people just put seals on flags? Well, comes from this history, comes from this practice, that still carries on today.
Yeah.
Would I characterize it as a maniacal fascination? No, I wouldn't. But that's Ted's words, not mine.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I guess, like, lastly, in like this pro thing, the 2022 new American City Flag Survey, where he took redesigned flags and then rated them again. You get, again, like, the top scoring Tulsa, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Reno, Nevada. Reno, I'm not a fan of. I don't like that flag.
I don't either.
I will say that just out here.
I think the Milwaukee People's Flag does what Reno does better.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want to compare them too much, but yes.
Yeah.
I do like Salem though.
And then I think Salem is great. The cherry blossom, I think, is beautiful. And pink. That's another color that you don't see often. And I think it has light blue in it. I think so.
Yeah.
And then notable mention: Salt Lake City, Lincoln, Pocatello's redesign, and South Bend. And so the conclusion that Ted kind of draws from these is that the results reflect, or this isn't his conclusion, this was my conclusion. The results reflect an aesthetic judgment that may be grounded in NAVA design principles and personal taste. The flags graded A through C are similar enough that disparities in grading may be more influenced by personal taste rather than strict design principles. And then, if anything, the survey highlights the design trends and attitudes towards the public considers a good flag. So it's, like I said, that aesthetic judgment or that aesthetic preference. It reports more of that than, this is a good flag, this is a bad flag. Which, unfortunately, despite Ted saying in his book that the flags that I have included as bad flags are not meant to be ridiculed or made fun of, they're just used to illustrate a point. But it's getting to a point where people are taking these rules or these principles and looking at flags which represent a people, ostensibly represent a group or an organization, and saying that's a bad flag, when which I don't really like. I don't like the sentiment of that. Like, it's one thing to say
no.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I can't remember if it was in an episode that has or hasn't come out yet. I think it has, but I think it was Luke's. But talking about, like, people, if you say, hey, that's a bad flag, people will take that, like, spin that off and be like, oh, you're saying that my town is bad. And by extension of that, you're saying that I am bad. And therefore, and people kind of run with it that way. It might have actually been Ted that's, I can't remember anymore. But yeah, it's, people have a visceral reaction to, you have a bad flag, more so than they ever do to just the flag itself, if that makes sense. Like they probably see it maybe every day, every other day, depending on how good the flag is or where they go downtown, you know, maybe weekly, monthly, but they never have a stronger opinion on it than when you say it is bad.
Right. Like, could you imagine? I mean, people probably could, but like, so let's take the American flag, for
I can
example.
imagine all kinds of.
Yeah, let's take the American flag, for example, right? So regardless of anyone's like opinion, like you can say that, oh, it's a bad flag because it has too many stars on it, it's too many stripes, it's not organized, it's, you know, it could look better. But people will have a visceral reaction to that, and they'll feel attacked
Yeah.
if you say that the American flag is a bad flag, or if you say anything almost negative. So people have that relationship to their cultural symbols. So to say that a cultural symbol is either good or bad, I just have some. I don't really, you know. I mean, from
Yeah,
a
no, I agree. Yeah.
artistic point of view, yeah, I guess you could say that. But from a cultural standpoint, it's, you
Even
know,
then subjective. So it's like, yeah, what do we, you know?
yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, those are all, man, this was exhaustive. Like you really took notes. For listeners, go ahead and look in the show notes, as I tell you to do every week, but like, man, and I may even say more so this week than ever every week, but really more so this week than ever. I'm going to put the whole doc in there for the con parts, but those are mostly the pros. For the con parts, join us over on Patreon, and we're going to talk about those for, I don't know, at least probably about a half hour or so. He's got some really good stuff on the doc here that I don't think can be explained just in doc form alone. Anyway, I'm talking too much, like I like to do. It is time to start closing out here. And Nicholas, I'm sure you have at least a thing or two to plug. So where can we find you, follow you, look at your work, see the flags on your balcony, all that good stuff?
Great, yeah. So I have an Instagram and TikTok account, both the same name, vexillology.nj. Right now, I am working on a design for my hometown flag, the flag of the Township of Hamilton. So I'm excited to get. I went to a committee meeting. I'm excited to move forward with that. I think one of the committee members is interested in it, but we still got some work to do to actually get the ball rolling.
It's
Other than
exciting.
yeah. Oh, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I'm in Nava. Catch me at any special interest meetings.
You going to 58?
No, so no, I'm not.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. And what's even worse is that 57 was in
it was right
Philly.
around the corner.
It was right around the corner, yeah, and
Yeah.
I just didn't have the ability to go. So, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
that's
I
all
think I
good.
was on vacation. But just see me around the flag world, man. That's where I'll
Cool.
be.
Yeah, and I can attest personally, you are a really good follow. You're more dedicated to the flags on the porch diagonal flagpole thing than I have been as of late. But yeah, you've always got a good one up.
Thanks. Posting
Sometimes I
every
have to ask
Saturday.
myself, like, wait, which one is that? Is it this or this? But yeah, anyway, okay. And then as far as the show itself, you can find us, follow us. The link tree is honestly the best place. It is linktree.com/flagged for content, all spelled out. That will at least get you there. Yeah, it's like linktr.ee. Don't worry about it. And anything with an @ sign, we are at flagged for content for like the number. I think that's pretty much it. I'll have said all the other stuff up top. So, oh yeah, I finally, honestly, Nicholas, I finally figured out a way to close the show, and made sure to keep my notes close by. Actually, I don't see my notes anywhere. Would you, just for this one last time, go ahead and take us away on an ending?
Sure. What did one flag say? See, there you go. What did one flag say to the other?
I don't know.
Nothing. It waved. Have a good night.
And so will we. And on that heartbreaking joke, That dad joke that was advertised at the top of the show, to be fair to everyone watching.
Should have saw it coming. Should have saw it coming.
It was advertised. But on that note, we'll say another cheesy thing, and we'll say catch you on the fly side. And thanks so much.
See, I had
that one got me. I don't know how I've not heard that before.
Oh, what did one flag say to the other? Nothing.
Flag for Content is proud to be sponsored by Flags for Good. Go to flagsforgood.com for more information.